All right, we've covered a lot of ground this morning, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of it. So call in at 217-629-7970. We talked about whether or not the efforts of gun control are curbing violence, as you've got the lawsuits pending in both the Illinois Supreme Court and the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban. We also talked about the peacekeepers and $30 million that's lined up for nonprofit groups in places like Chicago to ultimately pay for peacekeepers to take to the streets to intervene in violence. So you can sound off on that, or how you think is the best approach to go after the violent crime that we're seeing. We also talked about the issue of autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars, and Abe of Illinois joining us earlier to sound off on motorcycles not happy about this. Motorcyclists worried about the danger of self-driving cars, as Tesla has announced they're moving forward with the next phase of their self-driving cars. But another issue that's really, I think, going to continue to be a hot button issue is that of transgender individuals in women's locker rooms. A story here in Springfield out of the YMCA that's making national headlines. Fox News covering this, other outlets covering this, essentially saying that a 16-year-old girl was kicked off a swim team at the Springfield YMCA. She says that she was let go because she raised issues with a transgender individual being in the locker room. The YMCA denies that that's the case and said that the swimmer in question left on their own accord. But you've got the Illinois Freedom Caucus lined up with a news conference later on to address this in a joint appearance with the 16-year-old's family, who say that she was let go and accused of hate speech. But again, the YMCA denies this. So who's telling the truth here? And what exactly is going on with that particular story? So I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. We'll open it up for your phone calls on all of that and more. Stay tuned. It's Springfield's Morning News on WMAY. Now at 8:30. All right, let's get your phone calls. 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. You can email me, bishoponair@gmail.com, or you can find me on social media and join the conversation live on YouTube, where a lot of conversation back and forth every morning about the Second Amendment and the ongoing litigation against Illinois' gun and magazine ban. We've talked about that this morning. We've talked about red flag laws and the lack of transparency in that space, but we also talked about the state police and firearm owner identification card enforcement, plus the idea of $30 million in the state budget for so-called peacekeepers for this fiscal year. So you can sound off on all of that in the question of how do we combat gun violence and violent crime. So obviously a lot of moving pieces there. But we also talked about self-driving vehicles and Tesla announcing that they're moving forward with their next phase of self-driving vehicles, and motorcyclists not happy about it. Abe of Illinois raising concerns there. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. Again, 217-629-7970 is the phone number. But I think a lot of attention is on the issue of a transgender or several transgender individuals being in the locker room at the YMCA here in Springfield. It's been elevated to a national conversation now. Fox News airing the concerns of a 16-year-old who says that she was kicked off of the swim team at the Springfield YMCA because she raised objections to a transgender individual being in the women's locker room. And she says that she put up signs that said biological women only, and was told that that was hate speech and not allowed to practice. The YMCA denies that, and they've been denying these allegations since last month, when in May the concerns were raised on social media. Who do you believe here? Is it this 16-year-old and her family that say that they were accused of hate speech and not allowed to practice with the YMCA for the swim team? Or do you believe the YMCA saying that there's no credible allegations here and they just simply don't discriminate? So let's hear from you at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. Live and local. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Somebody has to be able to corroborate whether or not this woman actually put these signs up. I can't believe that they went up and somebody just followed her in the bathroom from the Y and said, no, you can't put those up. So the question of the hour is there a witness to any of this?
Witness and possibly even photographs. I mean, I'm sure that there's some aversion to not taking photos in a locker room. But, you would think that there would be witnesses to this. And from my understanding, the 16-year-old had teammates. Are any of those teammates going to be joining her in these allegations? But the YMCA just plainly denies this.
Yeah. And that's kind of like my first thought is okay, well, what would be the penalty if somebody actually did that? Why? I mean, that's one of the questions I'd love to ask the CEO. If somebody actually did that, what would the penalty be?
To do what?
And if he would say
to do hate speech or to express?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what would his response be? What would you have done if she had done that? And if the answer would be we would have probably asked her to leave the building and not come back, well, there you go. Probably happened.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't know how this gets resolved, if it gets resolved, or if it just furthers the debate about transgender individuals in the locker room. And that seems to be, the crux of this issue, let alone what signs were posted. What are your thoughts there? Should this be something that, is having an inclusive policy?
Well, if I was a young woman and I looked up from getting dressed in the locker room and saw a male appendage hanging in front of me, I think I probably would have freaked out. So the question would be: does a trans person have to go through his complete transition before they enter a locker room? To me, I mean, that's my whole thought: is at what point do we say, "Oh, a trans person's a trans person because they say so, because they've fulfilled all of their requirements"? I mean, what is a trans person? I think that's going to be the headache: is where's the definition? And we need to define this legally.
And we do have a law in Illinois now that allows for individuals to change the gender on their birth certificate and on their own. They don't have to have a medical note from a doctor to spell that out. I appreciate the call. Let's take a few more here at 217-629-7970. Got full phone lines. Good morning.
Good morning. I just want to know, why is it that she has a right to put up what she wants to, but yet the Y wouldn't have the right to tell her or ask her to leave for putting up that? I mean, when did
But the Y denies that they asked her to leave. So they're denying the story altogether.
What's the matter, though?
I
mean, like you promote business and all that stuff. If you have a right to whether or not a certain person comes into your place because of actions they do, then they should have been able to ask her to leave. Now, I don't know if they're denying because they just don't want the publicity, and this is a topic, but I'm always curious, why is it always a women's locker room? Do men not care that transgender women go? I mean, every story I hear is always about the women's locker room. And here's another question. What did the transgender do to her? I mean, is this just the fact that they were in there changing and they're minding their own business that she gets offended? Or did they turn and try to fondle her or make sexual advances at her? I never hear any stories of anybody doing anything other than they were in my locker room. Well, I remember maybe Prairie Capital Convention Center should have had a bunch of people arrested for when women would go into the men's restroom to go to the bathroom, or how many parents take their child into the opposite sex bathroom. Should they be prosecuted? I mean, this is just a complete joke.
I appreciate the call. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. Getting more calls here. Let's go to line 1. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning.
Hey.
So my question would be, why is this called hate speech? Like, what is hateful about a female saying this is a place only for females? Why is that hateful?
Well, again, the YMCA denies this. They deny that the swimmer was asked to leave for putting up a sign that says biological women only.
Okay, but I mean, in general, though, the response normally for this type of topic and even other topics would be anybody that disagrees with it is homophobic, transphobic. Like they hate these people. I've never met anybody that actually hates these people. They're just trying to maintain some order, and the English language has no meaning anymore. Like, nothing has any meaning, and everybody can take offense to it or be viewed as hateful. So that's my question: is if somebody put something up that said, a first grade class first graders only? Is that hateful to second graders or kindergartners? No, it's just this is for this type of person or these type of people. And to exclude somebody does not mean there just needs to be a separate option for those people. And the way that I understand it is that there is a separate option for.
Yeah, and there's family restrooms that are more private, but the YMCA says they can't force people to use that. We've got a few more calls coming in. Make it quick if you can. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, the whole problem to the situation is the simple fact that we take this transgender and put it into law when the simple fact is that it's transgender is the problem. Either you're a man or you're a woman. That's the locker room you should be in. This transgender thing of, I'm a man, but I'm identified as a woman. Our morals are backwards in this country, and our state laws are backwards, and we need to be definitely thinking how to lead this country in a different direction.
Got your comments, 217-629-7970. Real quick, please. Good morning.
We're backwards, and we need to be.
Yes, the YMCA's gone woke, and they've been corrupted for decades. So there's where you're at.
All right, 217-629-7970. Last call. Good morning. You're on WMAY. You got 15 seconds. Go.
Yeah. Why do we cater? Why does the 99% cater to the 1%? Why do we? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's a concern that being inclusive for everybody. That's at least the argument you hear a lot. So we'll see where this debate goes. Obviously, it's a national debate, and I don't think one that's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Appreciate